Joining us right now is the Shadow Minister of Agriculture for the Conservative Party of Canada, MP from Foothills. It is Mr. John Barlow. Hey, John, how's it going?
I'm great. Good morning, Sean. How are you?
Pretty good. Hey, what busy week in Ottawa this week?
Yeah, it's kind of like the silly season right now. Is we've got 4 weeks left until we rise for the summer recess, and some midnight sittings this week. So yeah, it's been a long haul already, and it's only Tuesday.
Get your caffeine while it's available.
That's
Hey,
right.
last week I saw you in the House of Commons, talking about a story that Real Agriculture broke going back a number of months ago, and that has to do with the funding of 4-H. And I found it interesting why last week was this coming back to the forefront, and two, big promise in terms of if the Conservative Party becomes the next government, saying we're going to refund 4-H. Well, why is this such an issue right now?
Well, it's such an important program, and we have a process that we go through to ensure that we have the support of our entire caucus when we take a position on an issue. So we had caucus meetings and those types of things to go over what our position on this would be. But it was unanimous. There was no question that our team wanted to reverse the funding cut to 4-H and restore that historic funding to a program which we know is extremely successful, where we have tens of thousands of youth every year learning about community and leadership and food production and helping to educate Canadians about where our food comes from, which I think is a critical topic where more Canadians need to understand modern Canadian agriculture, where their food comes from, and the importance of sustainability in food production.
Yeah, my personal opinion, it felt like a weird stand to take for the current government in terms of cuts at this time to 4-H. But we're at a period where I think there's a lot of organizations that rely on government funding or even corporate funding to survive that are under some hard pressed times here right now, John.
Yeah, there's no question, and one of the reasons that took us a little bit of time to come up with a statement is that we know the financial situation that we are going to inherit should we form the next government, and we wanted to make sure that there was funding available to restore that funding to 4-H, and we found, several millions of dollars that Ag Canada is paying consultants, and we believe that that's an easy place to find the money to fund programs like 4-H and Ag in the Classroom, which we understand has also seen its funding reduced. These are fundamental programs which have been proven to be successful, and I just believe it's a priority for us to continue to educate Canadians about modern Canadian agriculture, and these programs are pivotal in doing that. And I think that's where the priority should be, not on consultants that are doing the jobs that staff at AFC should be doing.
Now, I want to switch gears here a little bit to the Grocery Code of Conduct. Of course, food affordability is a big important issue for Canadians. There's no doubt about it. Why does the Conservative Party support the Grocery Code of Conduct, and what actually would this do if enabled?
Well, I think that's a great question, and the timing is excellent in that I think the perception around the Grocery Code of Conduct has been warped a little bit. The current government is painting, and the NDP to some extent, is painting the Grocery Code of Conduct as this salve that is going to reduce grocery prices. That's not what the Grocery Code of Conduct was initially meant to be, nor do I believe that is going to solve that problem. The Grocery Code of Conduct was, and why we support it, is it's going to put a framework around how retailers are treating the producers in terms of fines and late fees and transportation fees. It is supposed to be a protection for those fruit and vegetable producers more so than anyone on how they're being treated by the processors and the retailers. That was the impetus and the idea around the Grocery Code of Conduct. This is not going to be some magic elixir that is going to reduce grocery prices. And I find it disingenuous from the government's perspective that they're putting this out there, that if we get Walmart and Loblaws to sign on to the Grocery Code of Conduct, which is voluntary, not mandatory, that this is somehow going to lower grocery prices. I don't believe that that's going to be the case. It's still very important. It's still a tool that is going to ensure that producers are treated fairly by those large retailers. But I don't believe that this is all of a sudden going to be a a magic change for grocery prices.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. There has been definitely a hijacking and a crossing of swords, and it's creating confusion for I think a lot of people, consumers that are just looking at their grocery bills and be like, making the connection and saying, "Hey, well, we need this. Yeah, I want lower prices," but it would be kind of a false promise, as you indicated. Does the Conservative Party believe there needs to be more grocery competition in the market, as the government has claimed they're trying to do some recruiting?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question that there is competition. However, the competition is owned by, or dominated by five large retailers. But we are seeing, like Fresco in Alberta start to really, or the Friesen Brothers, sorry, in Alberta start to gain some real traction. So I think there are some opportunities there, and to follow that model. But yeah, I think there definitely needs to be increased competition. That's the way you drive down prices. And hopefully we'll start to see that develop. But again, as the industry minister is saying, he's inviting all of these foreign industries into Canada, or foreign retailers into Canada. They're not going to come if there are regulatory hurdles to getting started in Canada. I think there's going to be much more work to be done to entice additional competition in Canada to make them realize that this is a market that's worth entering.
Passion project for you is this Bill C-276, the farm trespassing bill. What are your expectations as the Senate looks at that private member's bill?
Well, I'll be in the Senate testifying to the bill on Thursday morning. I'm optimistic. We obviously the animal rights groups are being active on this, but I'm hoping that the Senate realizes, this isn't a bill an ag gag law, which is being called. This does not do anything to prevent protesting on public property. But as we're seeing right now with the avian flu, H5N1 within dairy cattle, certainly the concern around African swine fever, that there are some lines that we cannot cross when it comes to protecting our biosecurity on farms. There was a report out of California this week that showed that they have connected, or have likely connected, an outbreak of avian flu to trespassers that resulted in the culling of 250,000 birds in California. So we know this can happen. We need to take the steps to ensure that we do not allow that to happen, protect our food supply, protect our farming industry, and we just simply cannot afford to have a massive outbreak of one of these animal-borne diseases. And let's just take every precaution we can to put protections in place. And again, I want to be crystal clear here. This does not prevent animal rights groups from doing their job, and they have a role to play. But farmers and farm employees have a legal obligation to report any abuses or things or practices that are putting animal health at risk. So those things don't change. They can still protest on public property, but there's got to be a line in the sand, and that line is trespassing onto private property without having a comprehensive understanding of the very strict biosecurity protocols we have in place.
Are you pleased, satisfied, or critical of CFIA's response to HPAI and some of the infections we've seen in U.S. dairy animals? Are we on the right track in terms of how our response and trying to protect the Canadian industry?
We had an in-camera meeting on Thursday with representatives of Ag Canada, CFIA, CBSA. Taking their word for it, they seem to feel that they have this well in hand in terms of their monitoring and working with their colleagues on the southern side of the border. I think this is something we need to continue to monitor now that we have another farm employee in Michigan that has been infected. I think if we learned anything from COVID, we can't take any of these things lightly. Let's be as diligent as we possibly can. But it seems as of right now, they seem to have this in hand. I think the one area which I am concerned about is our lack of a stockpile of vaccines. It seems like we're not being as proactive as I think we should be. The perspective we're kind of hearing from CFIA is that if this should happen, we will react. I don't know if that's really the smart play right now. I think it's inevitable with how this is spreading that we will likely have this in Canada. So let's be prepared and let's start procuring some of that vaccine now.
And finally, John, I know you got to run here, but wanted to get an update, the latest on C-234. This is one that Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has really grabbed hold of, as of other members of the party. Haven't heard much in the last few weeks. Where's this at?
Well, it's kind of making its way back through the House of Commons. We are still working very hard to try and come to a deal with the Bloc to get them back on side. Losing the Bloc support on 234 has been difficult in terms that it will not pass without their support. It will pass as amended, but we obviously want to return 234 to its original form. To leave out the heating and cooling of barns, I don't think is fair, and we do not want to divide our agriculture community. Greenhouses would be left out, ranchers would be left out, poultry producers. I understand from our grain guys that they want that coverage for grain drying, but that's not going to be a huge issue until the fall. So we want to use as much runway as we can to try and get this back to where it will actually have a meaningful impact.
Yeah, grain drying is one sliver, one path. There's other parts of the industry that are impacted here.
For sure.
Hey, John, I know you got to run. There's stuff going on in Ottawa, so I really do appreciate it. All the best to you.
My pleasure, Sean. Always great to be on, and thanks very much for your interest. Appreciate it. And great job breaking the 4-H story.
Nice. A little bit of a rapid fire there.